Alright, I've done a lot of videos on Alolan Marowak lately, but you know what? It's just so good. Especially for the fact that Alolans are allowed for the Kanto Cup, so this is something you want to have in your team. It's likely something you already have built, because if you're using it during Halloween Cup, it's still good. Halloween, Marsh, it's a monster, it's a beast. You probably have one for the Kanto Cup. So, I don't need to do much of an introduction to Alolan Marowak. If you watch a lot of my videos, you know we go through the Go Hub analysis first every time. And Alolan Marowak is just a monster. Maxed out near 1500 CP and has one of the best stat spreads in all of Great League. Since the preseason, Alolan Marowak has been Shadow Balling or taking your soul every 15 battles. Or you've probably seen one every day. No, seriously. You've probably seen one every day. Anyways, the thing about Alolan Marowak is it's really good for the Kanto Cup. The reason being is because there's not a lot of Ghost checks in this meta. You are weak to Dark and Ghost, however, we'll go over that for a bit. Haunter is not your, you could still, because of its stat spread and it's bulky, it can take on Haunter. It can even take on Alolan Muck. That's why it's so good in this meta. Yes, it's weak to Dark. Yes, it's weak to Ghost. However, we can play around that. We're going to find out in a sec. Ground is a little bit to be concerned about because there are some things in this meta that do have Drill Run, etc. But other than that, you don't have to worry about it much. And if you have Fire Spin, you melt those Beedrills that have Drill Run anyways. Rock types aren't going to be too plentiful in this meta, so you don't have to worry about too much with the Rock unless it's a Machamp with the Rock Slide. That's the only thing you have to worry about. And Water, yes, there's water, but the most you will probably see is probably the Surfs from Lapras. So there is play with Alolan Marowak. We're going to find out in this analysis. So not only does it have checks against a lot of its weaknesses, or it's still very good. Has a ton of resistances. Alolan Marowak is a fire type. So you know what that means? Those Charmers that might come into the Kanto Cup and the Kanto and the Catch Cup, those Charmers, they ain't got nothing on you. Body Slam Snorlax does not fare well against you. You don't get punched to death, and at the same time, you do resist Bug. You have a lot of resistances against the Kanto Cup meta. Now, exactly how powerful and how good these resistances are, we're going to find out in the Matrix. Now, as I always say, expensive to power up, but you likely already have this one powered up. It was really good for the Halloween Cup. If you do Self, it's good for the March Cup. And it's just overall, it's been here forever. So, you likely have a Marowak already. And you have your Shadow Bone one. So, we're going to compare Shadow Bone and Shadow Ball, but I think Shadow Bone's better just because of its speed. We'll take a look in the Matrix, though. As you see, Sweet, Shiny, and like I said, you probably already have one of these, so I'm not going to go too in-depth. You will likely already have an Alolan Marowak available already for the Kanto Cup. Alright, so we have the rankings, and as you see, Alolan Marowak sports at number 3. It's just that good. As you see, it's the number 1 lead. Best used as a lead, because you can pivot around. With Hypno in this cup, Alolan Marowak really pairs well with Hypno. Not only does it beat Hypno, it also murders Alolan Sandslash. And remember I told you how Wigglytuff is There's not a lot of checks to Charmers, but Alolan Marowak is one of them, and it's very dangerous. Now, you have some key losses, like against Snorlax, Dragonair, etc., Shadow Snorlax. However, as you see here, it's still very, very good in all positions. You might not KO Snorlax, but you can definitely still hurt Snorlax in this meta. As you see, very strong in all positions, especially as a lead and as a charger. As the lead, it sports the number 1 lead in the game. It beats Hypno out just because Hypno's Fire Punch is what kind of gives it that oomph, because you can bait, but it's just, AWAC is just good. AWAC is just good. It can beat Hypno. So it can beat Hypno. It has some checks against a lot, and Shadow Bone and Bone Club is really good, especially if you get that Shadow Bone debuff. If you go to a closer, here we have Alolan Marowak at number 6. As you see, it's able to deal heavy damage against a lot of the meta, including Mew. You do lose against Hypno because it has Shadow Ball, but if you have Shield Advantage, you should be fine. Or if you have Energy Advantage, you still have a chance. Now, how we mentioned is that, remember how Ghosts are weak against Dark types and Ghost types? It's because Hypno has Shadow Ball, and because Shadow Mewtwo has Shadow Ball, and Alolan Marowak has Dark Pulse. That's why. So as a closer, it's still very good, very powerful, but use it. If you have one, you don't know what to use for the Kanto Cup, Alolan Marowak is one of your best friends. As a switch, Alolan Marowak is also good. It's a good substitute to Hypno. However, if you have Hypno, use Hypno as a safe switch. Much better. But it can still function very, very highly. As you see here, it does take out a lot of Shadow Mons. A lot of Ice types do fall, as well as Grass types. You won't see a lot of these. So I do definitely recommend you try to leave. Just lead with Alolan Marowak. The lead is its best position, and you can pivot out of it if you need to and kind of just like juggle it out. But with energy advantage and shield advantage, or like just expert gameplay, there's a reason why Alolan Marowak is the number 3 pick for the Kanto Cup. Alright, now our favorite part of the video is the Matrix, of course, at least it's mine. As you see here, we have Shadow Bone AWAC, and we have Shadow Ball AWAC, and we have the rest of the Kanto Cup meta to the right. Now, I already hit it. Here's the 2 shield. Now, this is why Alolan Marowak is the number 1 lead. Look at everything you beat. So, if you look over here, you beat Articuno because it's Ice, of course. You beat Beedrill. You also beat Fire Spin Charizard. However, be a little careful because Dragon Breath Charizard is dangerous. It does a lot of damage, and you do lose the Teal Shield. You win the 1 shield, but just because it's just, as you see here, Dragon Breath is just so oppressive, you die. But just keep that in mind. Other than that, you do beat the Fire Spin version. You beat Clefable. The important part is that Alolan Marowak can beat Charmers. Wigglytuff is a great budget pick in this cup because it's just... There's not a lot of Steel types here that don't check Charmers, and there's not a lot of Fire types except Alolan Marowak. Even though if Alolan Marowak, so if you look at the sim for Clefable and for Wigglytuff, if they leave it in the back with shields, it's dangerous. See what happens? In the 0-1-2s, you lose. However, you beat it in every other case. So Charmers, don't think Charmers are going away just because you have AWAC. With shield advantage, they definitely are here to stay, and they can ruin your day very quickly, as you see here. But you still do beat it. You beat it comfortably as long as you can keep shield advantage, as I said, and you don't take it to the zeros. So you lose against Dugong. However, I'll go as we go down the shield. You'll see like a lot of things flip, but this is why it's so good in the lead. You beat a lot of popular picks. You do beat Dragonair and Dragonite. Now, the only reason you don't beat Charizard with Dragon Breath is because it resists your Fire Spins, right? Makes sense. Now, you do beat Golbat as well, which is really awesome because Golbat, like, I think this is kind of bait dependent because you have it's a little bait dependent because you can't go straight Shadow Bone. As you see here, actually, you can't go straight Shadow Bone. So you just be careful in this matchup. As you see here, Golbat does win if it can land a Shadow Ball on you. So just watch out for that bait if you do get those Golbat leads. Other than that, you do bait it. So even though it's a bait dependent matchup, still good. Against Hypno, this is probably one of the most important portions. Against Hypno, you do beat Hypno, but like I said, this one you have to be careful for the Shadow Ball. If you can go straight Shadow Bone, I think, and still win. Yeah, you could, but as you see, the matchup becomes really close. And if they don't have Fire Punch, just if you call the Shadow Ball, yes, but as you see here, just be very careful of getting that Shadow Ball landed on you. You can go straight Shadow Bone, like I said right here in the lead, so that's what makes it such a good lead. You have outs, but like I said, just careful because this matchup's really close. If you don't want your Alolan Marowak to get farmed, of course, this is okay. And if you do get the buff, it's even better. One of the better things, it also beats Lapras. Being able to beat Lapras is huge. So if you look over here, yes, it's bait dependent. You have to double bait, and then you have to land the Shadow Bone. But like as you see here, you can beat in the 2s and the 1s. So very good that you can beat Lapras because Lapras' serves do chunk, but very comfortable. Now I don't know, like Shadow Champ, I think you can win this as long as you shield the Rock Slide here, you're okay. So if you call the bait, and instead you shield the Rock Slide, you should be okay, and you see you win here in 69 seconds. Yeah. But yeah, as long as you call... So when you're against a Shadow Champ or a Champ lead, just as long as you're able to call the Rock Slide, just you should be able to win comfortably. As you see, very strong against a lot of the meta. You do lose against Mew, unfortunately. Mew is very dangerous in this meta. And as you see here, it does a lot to you. If you go straight... If it lands the Wild Charge, it's going to hurt. But you also... Both of you have to... This is the bait game from hell. This is basically the bait game from hell. So, if you do get a Mew, be careful. You do lose if the Mew is able to bait you. So, just be careful. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to shield against Mew, because if it is a Surf Mew, you will lose. You do beat Monk, but you lose against Alolan Monk. You beat as you see, you beat a lot of the meta in the lead, and you have outs. Be careful of Shadow Lax. If you do find Thick Boy Lax in the lead, here's what happens. You do lose convincingly because it could go straight Body Slam. Just because Snorlax is so oppressive, you don't beat Snorlax in any scenario. So just be very careful of Snorlax. Alolan Muck is another one thing you should watch out for, because Alolan Muck is able to outpace you, and even though you do Bone Club it to death, as you see here, it's still very strong, as long as it's in even scenarios with you, or if it's up a shield, it's very dangerous. So that's another thing you should be careful. You can break shields though, so this isn't a bad rating with the 2s. You do have to shield both, but coming out of this, it has 3 HP left. So you can effectively take the matchup to the 0s and then play that way, but just be careful. The Amok won't also be able to have enough energy to get to another Dark Pulse, because whatever comes in will kill Amok. So just keep that in mind. This isn't a hard loss, however, just be careful. Because they will win Switch. So just, like I said, be very careful. Along with that, as you see in the lead, very strong. This is why it can also be good as a switch, because in the 2 shield or in the lead, Alolan Marowak is pretty dope, and as you see, you're very powerful. It changes if you go down in the 1 shield, it's even more interesting, because look how much you beat. Oh wait, hold on, give me 1 sec. Before we leave the 1 shield scenario, I forgot to mention, as you see, Shadow Bone does make a difference. You lose a lot of things if you don't have Shadow Bone, because Shadow Bone is usually enough to KO a lot of things in the Kanto Cup. Shadow Ball can work. I do recommend you use Shadow Bone though, because as you see here, there are things in this meta that Shadow Bone does make a difference versus Shadow Ball. You flip more matchups with Shadow Bone. So even if it's not like even if the one you have isn't a good IV, that's a 7, 11, 14 as you see here. This stat spread. It doesn't have to be really good. As far as I know, there's no like super break or bulk points, and all of its matchups, as you see, that are positive aren't too close, except the Lapras one, so you might want to watch out for that. But other than that, it's still really good. Like I said, IVs don't matter too much. Try to get a 10 attack one powered up as high as you can, and then likely the one that you have that you caught from raids will work. If you do have a good one traded to you, then more power to you. You already got to get Shadow Bone for the Kanto Cup. Now, if we go to the 1 shield things get really crazy. As you see here, Shadow Bone AWAC goes to town against the meta. You beat Articuno, you beat Beedrill, you beat both versions of Charizard now. You beat Clefable, you beat Dugong. Even though it debuffs you, but as long as you could watch. As you bait it and then you bone it to death. But you could even do this backwards. See, even though it hits the Water Pulse and it does hit the Icy one, you still win this matchup. Be careful though, because you can't go straight Shadow Bone if you, well, actually you can, but you barely win. Yeah, you barely win. So you can go straight Shadow Bone if you want, so still very good. When you take it to the 1s, Alolan Marowak is very, very good. As you see here, you lose against Golbat if it does hit that Shadow Ball on you, so just be careful. Haunter also beats you because it can Shadow Punch you to death now. As you see here, Alolan Marowak with Haunter, poof. Shadow Punch does heavy damage, so just be very mindful of with Haunter in the 1s. And just be mindful in the 1s. With Haunter in the 1s, in the 2s you do win, as you see here, but in the, you don't win the 2s because if you can take it out shields, Haunter can take you out. So just as long as you're up shields in the 0 to 1s, you're good, or the 2 to 1s, you're okay. But just be careful, just because Shadow Punch does so much damage. Hypno, you do beat Hypno. You beat Lapras more convincingly this time around. You beat Magneton. Although, of course, this mirror match is going to be really iffy because if you have Shadow... Here's where this is kind of dangerous. If your opponent does get the mirror and you're in the 1s, if they land the Shadow Ball, they win because Shadow Bone isn't enough to KO. So in the mirror, Shadow Ball is better than Shadow Bone in the mirror. So just be mindful. The general idea is to charge to a Shadow Ball, then throw Shadow Bone. So 6 fire spin. I believe it's for Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball, it's 1, 2, 45. Yeah. So Shadow Ball 6 fire spins. Shadow Bone's 5 fire spins. So it's only one more fire spin, but do that play definitely because if you get Shadow Ball, you die. So you have to shield the Shadow Ball to win this matchup. And then you still lose against A-Muck. You do beat Muck, regular Muck, of course, because you just Bone Club it to death. You beat Poliwrath, you beat Aichu. There's a lot of things you beat. Again, Snorlax does hard wall you, so just be very careful of Snorlax and Alolan Raticate. The rat does not look mighty. However, this rat will give you a very hard time in this meta. As you see, Alolan Marowak only wins the 2 shield and up shields convincingly, so just be very careful. A rat can go to town against your Marowak, unfortunately. But still very strong in the 1 shield. In the closer, things get a little dicey, but you still win a lot of matchups. As you see here, you beat a majority in the meta. Now when I mean it gets dicey, you lose against Dragonite, just because Dragon Bats will chunk you. You do lose against Golbat just because Shadow Ball Haunter destroys you. You also lose against Hypno and Lapras. As you see, these Slurfs do chunk. And you still win a lot of matchups, but you gotta be careful, because as you see here, Surf does hurt. You beat Shadow Champ, you beat Magneton, because you Shadow Bone Shadow Champ to death. You beat Mew still. So you'll still beat Mew because Shadow Bone is able to take out Mew. As you see, Shadow Bone does heavy damage. Heavy damage. And you're able to KO Mew. Actually, you pretty much obliterate Mew from the face of the planet. You still lose against A-Muck, and you lose against Alolan Raticate. Of course, we already covered Alolan Raticate and Snorlax. These things beat you really hard, so just be very careful. As you see, you beat the majority of the rest of the meta. You even beat the Charmers. Like I said, unless the Charmers, as you see with Wigglytuff, unless Charmers have shield advantage, you will beat them. As you see here, Wigglytuff only wins if Charmers only win if they're up a shield. So they have to be in the 1 to 0. Actually, they have to take you to the zeros. As you see here, you have to go to zeros. You beat them in the 2 to 1s, but in the 0 to 1s and the 0 to, as long as you don't take it to zeros and they have a shield, you're fine. So just keep that in mind. Be careful. Now, up shields, this is where Alolan Marowak goes to town. If you manage to leave another Marowak with a shield, guess what? You kill a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. As long as you have a shield and you take it to the zeros, this is what happens. Marowak with shield advantage is very dangerous. And as you see, you only lose against Snorlax in this case. You even beat Alolan Raticate. As long as you're the 1 to zeros, you will beat the entire meta. That's why Alolan Marowak is nuts. In the 2 shield, it's even worse. In the 2 shield, you beat everything. You only lose against Snorlax, like the 1s. So if you take it to the 1 to the zeros, it's so powerful. Giving this thing shield advantage is almost death. Obviously, there are still things that can beat you. However, with up shields, it's very, very difficult to kill Alolan Marowak. Even in the 2 to 1s. In the 2 to 1s, the only matchup you pick up is Dugong. And this is bait dependent too. You can eat if you eat the ice shards and you call the water pulse, you can win. So if we go to sandbox mode, if you don't shield this attack, but you shield the water pulse, you can still win. See? If you call the water pulse, you win. So technically, in the 2 to 1s, you can beat everything. You just have to be careful about Dugong. With shield advantage, Alolan Marowak goes to town against everything but Snorlax. And that's pretty much it. As you see, Alolan Marowak in the entire meta is incredibly powerful. You want Shadow Bone versus Shadow Ball, but like, it's okay. If I were you, I would power 1 up, just for future reference. Yeah, it's a little expensive, but because you get it from raids, like here, let's go back. So this is the technical summary, like, Alolan Marowak is just freaking good. If you get Alolan Marowak from raids, this is where you get at. You get it at 1048. So you get it around, it takes around like a couple of power-ups. So you'll still spend a decent amount of dust, but you do want a Shadow Bone Marowak. Shadow Bone did very well during Alolan Marowak. This is the only mon where IVs don't matter too much, in my opinion. Yes, you get a good IV one, and it does matter in like really close matchups. However, the raid one is fine. So you can use your raid one, and it will do very well for you in this cup. Alolan Marowak is very powerful. So in summary, I give it, let's see. I give it a 9. I give it a 9 just because Alolan Marowak is just so strong in this meta. Obviously, anything that gets walled, I can't give it a 10. So the reason I don't give AWAC a 10 is because, as you see, Snorlax does wall you. That's what makes Snorlax such a huge problem in this. Well, not really a huge problem. Snorlax does have checks, but it completely walls AWAC. Because it completely walls AWAC, I can't confidently give AWAC a 10. The reason I give it a 9, though, and it's one of the highest ratings I give, is because against overall meta, and simply being up shield, it's so strong. That's how powerful Alolan Marowak is. Like I said, also, the only limitation other than that is that you have to, like, you can only get it from raids, or you can Elite TM it, but I wouldn't like, the one you have from raids is fine. It's not very expensive. Compared to a lot of other mons, like a Mew, it's very budget. So you don't have to worry too much about Alolan Marowak. And like I said, you probably already have one built. So other than those two limitations, I really have nothing bad to say about Alolan Marowak. Alolan Marowak is very dangerous in this meta, and is one of the reasons why Hypno is... You can play, like, it gives you play against Hypno. With Alolan Marowak, Alolan Muck, you have play against Hypno now. Otherwise, Hypno would run over the cup. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you like it. Again, Alolan Marowak is very strong. I would really consider you using it because, like I said, it is one of the most powerful Pokemon for the Kanto Cup.